The Great Hall on Kepler Prime buzzed with voices from across the galaxy. Tall blue aliens with 4 arms sat next to short green creatures with crystal skin. Flying beings with wings made of light hovered above tables where rock-like species discussed trade deals. This was a galactic council where 12 major alien races met to keep peace in their corner of a universe. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the back corner, taking notes on his small tablet. The human section was tiny compared to the grand platforms where the powerful alien empires held court. Earth had joined the galactic community only 5 years ago, and most aliens still saw humans as children playing with toy ships. Admiral Zextar, a massive reptilian creature with scales that gleamed like metal, stood before the assembly. His voice boomed across the hall as he bragged about the hegemony's newest weapons. "Our plasma destroyers can melt through any known armor," he declared, his 4 eyes glowing with pride. 10,000 of these ships patrol our borders. No force in the galaxy can match our firepower. The crystalline Vorth delegates chimed in with sounds like breaking glass. Their translation devices converted the musical tones into words. Firepower means nothing without proper defenses. Our quantum shields can stop any attack. Even your plasma weapons bounce off them like raindrops. Other species nodded and murmured agreement. The bat-like Nexri spoke of their faster-than-light missiles. The plant people called Verdans described their ships that could heal themselves during battle. Each race tried to prove they were the strongest, the smartest, the most advanced. Jake Morrison wrote everything down, but he said nothing. Earth's representatives always stayed quiet during these meetings. Humans were seen as the new kids in the neighborhood, barely worth listening to. Their ships used old chemical rockets and simple metal bullets. Most aliens laughed when they saw human weapons, calling them antiques and primitive tools. The meeting continued with boring discussions about shipping routes and mining rights. Jake checked his watch, counting the hours until he could return to his small ship and report back to Earth Command. These council meetings always felt like a waste of time. Then the emergency alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the Great Hall as urgent messages flooded every communication device. The aliens stopped their debates and stared at the holographic displays that appeared in the air above them. Data streams showed readings from sensors across 3 different star systems, all reporting the same impossible thing. Massive gravitational disturbances detected in hyperspace announced the Council's computer system in its calm, mechanical voice. Unknown objects moving at unprecedented speeds. Energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. Admiral Zextar's scales turned pale. The Vorth delegates made worried, chiming sounds. Even the usually calm plant people seemed shaken by the news. Jake Morrison felt his heart rate increase as he read the sensor reports on his tablet. The objects were huge, bigger than anything the galaxy had ever built. Each one measured larger than Earth's moon, and they moved through space in perfect formation. Their energy readings made no sense. The sensors couldn't identify what powered them or what they were made of. More reports came in every few minutes. The mysterious objects had appeared simultaneously across multiple star systems, all moving toward the galaxy's core worlds. They traveled faster than any known ship, but they weren't using conventional engines. Space itself seemed to bend around them as they moved. Jake's tablet buzzed with an encrypted message from Earth Command. Admiral Lisa Grant's face appeared on the small screen, her expression serious and controlled. Behind her, Jake could see the busy command center of Earth's military headquarters. "Jake, this is an emergency transmission," Admiral Grant said quietly. "All human civilians in the outer systems are being moved to secure locations. Our military assets are being repositioned for what we're calling diplomatic purposes. I need you to stay calm and maintain your cover at the council meeting. Act surprised. Ask the same questions the other aliens are asking. Do not let them know that Earth Command is aware of the situation." The message ended before Jake could respond. He looked around the Great Hall, watching the alien representatives panic and argue about what to do. Several species were already calling their home fleets, ordering them to prepare for battle against an unknown enemy. The hegemony admiral was shouting orders into his communication device. "I want every ship in the fleet armed and ready. If these unknown objects are hostile, we'll show them the power of hegemony weapons." The Vorth were singing their war songs. crystalline voices rising in harmony as they prepared their people for conflict. The Nexeries spread their wings and screeched battle calls that hurt human ears. Jake Morrison watched it all and pretended to be as confused and worried as everyone else. Inside, he felt a cold certainty growing in his stomach. Earth Command knew something about these mysterious objects. Admiral Grant's message had been too careful, too specific. The phrase diplomatic purposes didn't match the fear he saw in her eyes. More sensor data appeared on the displays. The unknown objects had stopped moving and were holding position at the edge of explored space. They made no attempt to communicate, sent no messages, and gave no signs of their intentions. They just waited in the darkness between stars, like predators watching their prey. The council chamber erupted into arguments as different alien species blamed each other for the crisis. Some thought it was a secret weapon project gone wrong. Others believed it was an invasion force from outside the galaxy. A few suggested that someone had awakened an ancient sleeping enemy. Through it all, Jake Morrison sat quietly in the human section, taking notes and acting concerned. But his mind was racing with questions he couldn't ask out loud. What did Earth Command know about these objects? Why were human civilians being moved to safety? And why did Admiral Grant look so scared when she recorded that message? The galaxy's most powerful species continued their panic and their preparations for war. None of them noticed the small human in the corner, the one who might already know more about their mysterious visitors than he was willing to admit. As the emergency session continued into the night, Jake received one more message on his tablet. This one contained only 2 words. Stay ready. The silence between the stars was about to end, and Jake Morrison suspected that when it did, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. Captain Rex Holland stood on the bridge of his ship, the USS Liberty, watching space bend in ways that shouldn't be possible. Around him, the mixed crew of humans and aliens worked frantically at their stations, trying to make sense of the readings that filled their screens. The Liberty was part of a joint investigation fleet sent to make contact with the mysterious objects. Alongside the small human survey ship flew massive hegemony cruisers, bristling with weapons and elegant Vorth science vessels that looked like flying crystals. 12 different species had contributed ships to this mission, all desperate to understand what was heading toward their home worlds. Captain, called out Lieutenant Amy Clark, the human scientist assigned to the mission. I'm getting readings that don't match anything in our databases. These objects are definitely artificial, but they're using technology we've never seen before. Rex nodded, keeping his expression calm even though his heart was racing. Through the main view screen, he could see them now, the mysterious vessels that had put the entire galaxy on edge. They hung in space like living shadows, visible only because of how they bent the light from distant stars around their hulls. Each ship was enormous, stretching for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Their surfaces seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, never quite staying the same shape for more than a few seconds. Most disturbing of all, they moved without any visible engines or energy emissions. They simply glided through space as if the normal rules didn't apply to them. How many are there? Rex asked his sensor officer, a young hegemony warrior named Clix. Difficult to say, Captain, Clix replied, his reptilian features twisted in confusion. Our sensors keep losing count. One moment we detect 50 vessels. The next moment there are 100. It's as if they phase in and out of our reality. Dr. Amy Clark looked up from her workstation, her face pale with worry. She had been studying the energy readings for 3 hours, and what she found made her hands shake. The signatures matched theoretical research from classified Earth projects, work that supposedly existed only in computer simulations. Captain Holland, she said quietly, I need to send an encrypted message to Earth Command immediately. This is a priority 1 scientific discovery. Rex approved the transmission, though he wondered why Dr. Clark looked so frightened by what she had found. Around them, the alien crews were celebrating what they saw as a chance for peaceful contact with an advanced civilization. The Vorth were already composing welcome songs in 17 different mathematical languages. Admiral Zextar's voice crackled over the communication system from his flagship. All vessels maintain defensive positions but do not power weapons. We don't want to appear hostile to our new neighbors. Prepare first contact protocols. The joint fleet spread out in a welcoming formation, their universal translators ready to convert any alien language into understandable words. Representatives from each species prepared greeting messages that had worked with dozens of other civilizations throughout galactic history. For 6 hours, they tried everything: mathematical sequences, cultural exchanges, artistic displays, even simple light patterns that any intelligent species should recognize as attempts at communication. The shadow ships acknowledged none of it. They simply hung in space like silent monuments, giving no sign that they even knew the galactic fleet existed. Dr. Clark's encrypted message to Earth Command was brief but urgent. She used code words that would trigger immediate attention from the highest levels of human military leadership. Project Midnight confirmed, she transmitted. Repeat, Project Midnight is active. Theoretical applications now proven possible on massive scale. Recommend immediate consultation with development teams. The response from Earth came back within an hour, also heavily encrypted. Admiral Lisa Grant's message was simple: maintain observation protocol. Report any changes immediately. Under no circumstances, reveal human knowledge of technology involved. Critical importance to Earth security. Amy Clark stared at the message for a long time, her scientific training warring with her loyalty to her species. Project Midnight was supposed to be theoretical research into manipulating dark matter, the invisible substance that made up most of the universe. Earth scientists had proven it was possible to harvest dark matter and use it as an energy source, but actually building ships powered by it was supposed to be decades away. Yet here were vessels that matched every theoretical prediction her team had made about dark matter technology. Ships that could bend space around themselves, making them nearly invisible and allowing them to travel faster than anything else in the galaxy. The implications terrified her. Back in the galactic fleet, frustration was growing. The Nexari had sent their best diplomats, beings who could communicate through electromagnetic fields and quantum fluctuations. Even they received no response from the shadow ships. The Verdans tried biological communication, releasing spores that could carry chemical messages across space. Nothing worked. Perhaps they are studying us, suggested Commander Yill of the Vorth science vessel Crystal Song. Many species observe before making contact. We should be patient. Admiral Zextar was less diplomatic. Or perhaps they are deciding which of our worlds to attack first. I don't trust anyone who refuses to talk. In my experience, silence means they're planning something unpleasant. Captain Holland tried to keep the peace between the different species, but tensions were rising. The hegemony ships kept drifting closer to combat positions. The Nexari were spreading their wings in threat displays. Even the usually calm Vorth were beginning to sing warning harmonies. Through it all, Dr. Amy Clark continued her analysis of the shadow ship's energy signatures. The more she studied them, the more convinced she became that these vessels represented decades of advancement beyond anything Earth had achieved. If these were human ships, they were built using technology that Earth scientists had only dreamed about. But if they weren't human ships, then some other species had independently developed dark matter manipulation on a scale that dwarfed every other civilization in the galaxy. That possibility was almost as frightening as the alternative. As the standoff continued, long-range sensors began detecting more shadow ships arriving from deep space. Dozens became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. Each new arrival took position with mathematical precision, forming a formation that stretched across multiple star systems. The galactic fleet, once confident in their superior numbers, now found themselves vastly outnumbered by vessels that treated the laws of physics as polite suggestions rather than absolute rules. Dr. Clark received one final message from Earth Command as the day ended. This one contained detailed technical specifications and a single question: confirm match with theoretical predictions for dark matter manipulation technology. Is this what we think it is? She stared at her data for a long moment, then typed a response with trembling fingers. Confirmed. Technology matches all theoretical models for weaponized dark matter manipulation. These ships are operating on principles that we understand but cannot replicate. Earth must know something about this. As she sent the message, Amy Clark realized that humanity's position in the galaxy was about to change forever. The only question was whether her species were about to become the galaxy's protectors or its greatest nightmare. General Carl Davis had never seen anything like it in his 30 years of military service. From the observation deck of the Hegemony flagship Dominator, he watched the largest fleet in galactic history assemble in the neutral zone. Thousands of warships from across the galaxy had answered the emergency call, their weapons trained on the edge of known space where the Shadow Fleet waited. The sight should have been inspiring. For the first time in recorded history, every major power in the galaxy had put aside their differences to face a common threat. The massive Hegemony dreadnoughts floated alongside the crystalline Vorth battlesingers. Nexary swarm fighters darted between verdant bioships that pulsed with living light. Even the mysterious collective had sent their dark cubes, vessels that few living beings had ever seen up close. Carl counted more than 10,000 ships in combined armada. Each one carried enough firepower to level cities, and together they represented the military might of civilizations that had conquered entire star systems. Any force in galactic history would have fled in terror at the sight of such overwhelming power. But Carl Davis wasn't celebrating. As Earth's military attaché to the Galactic Council, he had access to classified human intelligence that made his stomach twist with worry. The encrypted messages from Earth Command painted a very different picture than what the alien admirals believed. Admiral Zextar stood at the center of the command bridge, his four eyes gleaming with confidence as he studied the tactical displays. Around him, military leaders from 12 species planned their strategy for the coming battle. 10,000 ships, Zextar declared, his voice carrying the authority of countless victories. The largest armada ever assembled. No force in the galaxy has ever faced such combined firepower. These shadow ships may be advanced, but they cannot match the united strength of our civilizations. Commander Yill of the Vorth chimed in agreement, her crystalline body resonating with harmonious confidence. Our combined technologies complement each other perfectly. Hegemony plasma weapons, Vorth quantum shields, Nexary speed, verdant adaptability. Even if these mysterious ships are individually superior, they cannot overcome our numbers and diversity. The other alien commanders nodded, their various forms of communication expressing similar confidence. They had studied the sensor readings from Captain Holland's reconnaissance mission. The shadow ships were large and clearly advanced, but they numbered only in the hundreds. Even accounting for superior technology, the mathematics seemed clear. Carl Davis said nothing during these planning sessions, though his human perspective would have been valuable. Earth's military doctrine emphasized different principles than the alien approaches. While the galactic powers focus on overwhelming firepower and defensive strength, human strategy had always valued speed, deception, and technological surprise. But Carl had his orders from Earth Command. He was to observe, report, and maintain Earth's facade of primitive technology. No matter what happened, he could not reveal that humanity might have connections to the Shadow Fleet. The truth was eating at him. 3 days ago, he had received a classified briefing from Admiral Lisa Grant that changed everything he thought he knew about Earth's military capabilities. The shadow ships weren't just using advanced technology. They were using human technology, decades ahead of anything the galactic powers possessed. While the alien civilizations had spent centuries perfecting conventional weapons and shields, Earth had secretly pursued research into dark matter manipulation. The theoretical breakthrough had come 5 years ago, just as humanity joined the galactic community. Since then, human scientists have been working in hidden facilities scattered across the outer rim, building ships that could bend the fundamental forces of the universe to their will. The Shadow Fleet represented the culmination of that research. Vessels that existed partially outside normal space-time, powered by engines that converted empty vacuum into pure energy. Each ship could phase in and out of reality at will, making them nearly impossible to target or destroy. Carl watched the alien admirals plan their attack strategies and wanted to warn them. These beings weren't evil, just ignorant of what they were really facing. Admiral Zextar had fought in dozens of wars and never lost a major battle. Commander Yill's mathematical mind had calculated victory probabilities in thousands of conflicts. They were applying the lessons of conventional warfare to an enemy that operated by completely different rules. The collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a mechanical body, spoke in its synthesized voice. Analysis complete. Shadow ships demonstrate advanced technology, but follow predictable formation patterns. Recommend focus assault on command vessels to disrupt coordination. A Nexary war leader spread his wings in agreement. My fighters can exploit gaps in their formation. These large ships may be powerful, but they will be slow to respond to fast-moving attacks. Carl wanted to laugh bitterly at their confidence, but he maintained his professional composure. The alien commander saw big, slow targets that would be easy to outmaneuver. They had no idea that the shadow ships could accelerate from 0 to near light speed in seconds, or that their weapons could reach across entire star systems in the blink of an eye. Admiral Zextar called up a holographic display of the enemy formation. The Shadow Fleet has positioned itself at the edge of the Kepler system. They've made no aggressive moves, which suggests they're waiting for us to make the first move. We'll give them what they expect. The battle plan was classic galactic military doctrine. The hegemony dreadnoughts would advance in formation, drawing the enemy's attention with their massive firepower. Vorth shield ships would protect the flanks while Nexary fighters swarmed around the edges, looking for weak points. The Collective's cubes would provide electronic warfare support, and the Verdans would adapt their tactics based on how the enemy responded. It was a good plan, the kind that had worked against every military force the galaxy had ever produced. Against conventional opponents, it would have guaranteed victory within hours. Carl Davis knew it would get them all killed. His secure communicator buzzed with another message from Earth Command. Admiral Grant's face appeared on the small screen, her expression grim with the weight of terrible decisions. Carl, the Shadow Fleet has been given permission to defend themselves if attacked. Earth's position is that we cannot control the actions of independent human military units operating outside our official command structure. You are to maintain your cover and document the engagement for future diplomatic purposes. The message was clear enough. Earth was about to let its secret fleet demonstrate human military superiority to the entire galaxy, using the combined alien armada as an unwitting test. The political implications would reshape galactic civilization forever. Carl looked around the command bridge at the alien officers preparing for battle. These beings trusted their weapons, their shields, their tactics that had proven successful for centuries. They were about to learn that humanity had been studying their methods for 5 years and had developed countermeasures for everything they might try. The irony was overwhelming. For years, the galactic powers had dismissed humanity as a primitive species barely worth notice. Earth's representatives had been relegated to observer status, denied access to advanced technology, and excluded from major decisions. The aliens had assumed that human chemical rockets and metal bullets represented the peak of terrestrial military development. Soon, they would discover that humanity had been using that time to build weapons that made their most advanced technologies look like stone tools. Admiral Zextar raised his massive arm to signal the beginning of the attack. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Today we show these mysterious visitors the true power of galactic civilization. Carl Davis closed his eyes and tried not to think about how many good soldiers were about to die for the sake of humanity's deception. The moment that would reshape galactic history began quietly. The Shadow Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, like dark ghosts materializing from nightmares. Their massive forms cast literal shadows across nearby asteroid fields. Each ship so large that nearby planets experienced brief eclipses as the vessels passed between them and distant stars. Captain Rex Holland watched from the bridge of the USS Liberty as the combined galactic armada formed battle lines. 10,000 ships from across the galaxy spread out in perfect military formation, their weapons charging with energy signatures that lit up every sensor display. The sight was magnificent and terrifying, the greatest concentration of firepower in recorded history, all focused on mysterious newcomers. The shadow ships took position with mathematical precision, their formation so perfect it looked like a computer simulation. They made no aggressive moves, raised no shields, and armed no visible weapons. They simply waited in the darkness between stars, as if the massive fleet preparing to attack them was nothing more than an interesting curiosity. Admiral Zextar's voice boomed across all communication channels as he prepared to issue the attack order. Attention, unknown vessels. You have entered sovereign galactic space without permission and refused all attempts at communication. Surrender now or face the consequences of your actions. The response came not as radio waves or quantum signals, but as pure information directly interfaced with every ship's computer system simultaneously. It bypassed all firewalls, ignored all security protocols, and spoke directly to the minds of every being in both fleets at the same time. The voice that emerged spoke in perfectly translated galactic standard, but somehow everyone heard it in their own native language with emotional undertones that made the words impossible to ignore. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Terran Deep Space Navy. We are responding to reports of hostile intent toward Earth shipping and colonial interests. You have assembled a military force with clear aggressive intentions toward human assets. This constitutes an act of war under Earth military protocols. The silence that followed was absolute. Across 10,000 ships, alien crew members stared at the displays in stunned disbelief. The Shadow Fleet was human? The primitive species that used chemical rockets and metal bullets had built ships that could interface directly with their minds? Admiral Zextar recovered first, his reptilian features twisting with anger and confusion. Impossible. Earth barely has a dozen ships in space. Your technology level is centuries behind ours. This is some kind of trick or deception. Commander Jake Morrison's voice cut in from the observation section of the Galactic Council Station. For the first time since arriving at Kepler Prime, he spoke with authority instead of deference. Admiral Zextar, I've been authorized by Earth Command to drop our diplomatic cover. What you're seeing is the third fleet of the Terran Deep Space Navy. Earth has 17 active fleets of similar size patrolling various regions of space. The revelation hit the galactic commanders like a physical blow. Jake Morrison, the quiet human who had sat in the back taking notes for 5 years, was suddenly speaking as if he commanded more military power than entire galactic civilizations. Dr. Amy Clark's voice joined the conversation from her research station aboard the Liberty. I've been authorized to declassify certain aspects of human technological development. While Earth maintained diplomatic relations with galactic civilization, our scientists achieved breakthroughs in dark matter manipulation that fundamentally changed our capabilities. She activated her workstation's holographic displays, sharing data that made every alien scientist in the fleet stare in shock. The technical specifications were impossible to understand, describing technology that treated the basic laws of physics as programming languages rather than absolute rules. Dark matter comprises 85% of the universe, Dr. Clark explained, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. While galactic civilization developed technology using the 15% of matter we can see, humanity learned to harvest and weaponize the invisible majority. Each ship in the Terran fleet carries enough dark matter fuel to power your home worlds for centuries. Admiral Sullivan's transmission continued, her tone remaining perfectly calm despite the chaos she was causing. Earth's position is simple. We want to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. For 5 years, we tried diplomatic integration with galactic society. The response was condescension, exclusion, and now open military threat. She paused, letting her words sink in across the assembled fleet. You have 36 hours to disperse your forces and submit to binding arbitration regarding human colonial rights. After that time, we will consider your continued presence an act of war. Admiral Zextar's anger overrode his shock. The idea that the primitive humans could threaten the combined might of galactic civilization was beyond his ability to accept. You're bluffing. No matter how advanced these ships are, you're outnumbered 100 to 1. Our combined firepower could crack planets. The response came from Captain Joe Turner aboard the shadow ship designated UES Valkyrie. His voice carried the casual confidence of someone who had never doubted the outcome of a battle. Admiral, our ships are designed to fight entire galactic civilization single-handed. Your armada represents exactly the kind of threat we were built to handle. Captain Turner activated his ship's external displays, showing technical readouts that made even the Collective's advanced computers struggle to process the information. Each Terran vessel carries weapons that can manipulate gravity, alter the flow of time, and convert matter to energy at the quantum level. We don't fight by your rules because we don't need to. The demonstrations began small. The UES Phantom, commanded by Captain Roy Palmer, briefly phased out of normal space-time. to the Galactic Fleet's sensors, the massive ship simply vanished from reality, then reappeared 3 light minutes away without traveling through the space between. The implications of such technology sent shockwaves through every military mind watching. Commander Morrison's voice carried a note of regret as he addressed the alien commanders he had worked with for 5 years. Earth hoped that diplomatic integration would work. We genuinely wanted to be part of galactic civilization. But every proposal we made was rejected, every technology we offered was dismissed as primitive, and every request for equal treatment was denied. The truth was finally complete. While Earth's diplomats sat quietly in council meetings, human scientists have been building a military force that made every other species look like children playing with toys. The Shadow Fleet represented not just technological superiority, but fundamental evolution in how intelligent beings could interact with the universe itself. Dr. Clark's final revelation was the most disturbing. "This isn't Earth's main fleet," she said quietly. "The Third Fleet is a patrol squadron. Earth's primary defense forces are stationed in our home system, and our exploration fleets are mapping regions of space far beyond the galactic rim." The scope of human deception was staggering. While alien civilizations had spent centuries perfecting conventional technology, humanity had secretly become a power that could reshape reality according to their will. The primitive species that everyone had dismissed as irrelevant had become the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Admiral Sullivan's final transmission carried the weight of absolute certainty. 36 hours, gentlemen. Use that time wisely. The Shadow Fleet settled into a waiting pattern, their dark hulls reflecting nothing while their sensors watched every move the Galactic Armada made. They had revealed just enough of their capabilities to make their point clear. This was not a battle anyone sane would want to fight. But sanity had never been the galactic military's strongest quality, and pride was about to cost him everything. Admiral Zextar's pride proved stronger than his wisdom. After 18 hours of heated debate among the galactic commanders, the hegemony leader made the decision that would haunt military historians for generations to come. "I don't care they are human or alien," he declared from the bridge of his flagship. "No force in this galaxy threatens the combined might of our civilizations and lives to tell about it. We've conquered entire star systems with less firepower than we have here today." The other alien commanders were divided. The Vorth wanted more time to study the human technology before making any aggressive moves. The collective's analysis suggested that a direct assault would result in unacceptable casualties. Even the usually aggressive Nexari were hesitant to attack an enemy they didn't understand. But Admiral Zextar had made his reputation by crushing opponents who tried to intimidate him with superior technology. In his mind, the humans were just another species trying to avoid a fair fight through psychological warfare. He had seen it all before. "All ships, target the largest shadow vessel and prepare for synchronized assault," he ordered. "We'll show these humans what happens when you threaten galactic civilization." General Carl Davis watched the preparations with growing horror. He knew exactly what was about to happen, but his orders were clear. Maintain cover and document everything for Earth Command. He could only sit and watch as thousands of good soldiers prepare to die for the sake of one alien's wounded pride. The attack began with the largest weapons barrage in recorded galactic history. Every ship in the combined armada opened fire simultaneously, sending enough plasma bolts, quantum torpedoes, and exotic matter beams to sterilize an entire solar system. The energy output was so massive that nearby planets detected the electromagnetic pulse from light years away. The target was the UES Valkyrie, Captain Joe Turner's flagship and the largest vessel in the human Shadow Fleet. The alien weapons converged on a massive ship with mathematical precision, certain that nothing could survive such concentrated firepower. The Shadow ship didn't dodge. It didn't raise shields. It didn't even attempt evasive maneuvers. Instead, reality simply adjusted around it. The plasma bolts curved away like water flowed around stone, their energy absorbed by invisible fields that made space itself hungry for matter. Quantum torpedoes detonated harmlessly against barriers that existed in dimensions the galactic scientists had never discovered. The exotic matter beams, weapons that could punch through planets, simply stopped existing when they encountered the human ship's defenses. Captain Turner's voice came across all communication channels, completely calm despite having just survived the most devastating attack in galactic history. That was impressive coordination. Unfortunately, you're fighting a war with the fundamental forces of the universe, and we have those on our side. The Valkyrie's response was surgical in its precision. The massive ship phased partially out of normal space-time, existing simultaneously in multiple dimensions. When it returned to normal space, 12 hegemony dreadnoughts had simply vanished, not destroyed or damaged, but erased from existence as if they had never been built. The missing ship's matter had been converted to pure energy and fed directly into the Valkyrie's dark matter core, making the human vessel even more powerful than before. It was the most effortless display of overwhelming technological superiority any of the survivors would ever witness. "We don't want to fight you," Captain Turner announced to the stunned Galactic fleet. "We want to go home to our families and our colonies. But if you insist on this path, we'll show you why Earth's military doctrine emphasizes ending conflicts quickly." Admiral Zextar's response was to order a full fleet assault. 10,000 ships, the pride of galactic civilization, opened fire with everything they had. Energy weapons that could boil oceans, kinetic projectiles moving at significant percentages of light speed, gravity bombs that could collapse stars, and reality-warping weapons that few species fully understood. The human fleet's response demonstrated why. They called it the Dark Matter Navy. Space began to fold. Gravity wells appeared and disappeared according to human will rather than natural law. Enemy ships found themselves flying backward through time by microseconds, their weapons firing before their crews had decided to pull the triggers. The humans weren't just more advanced. They were fighting a war in dimensions that the galactic powers couldn't even perceive. Captain Roy Palmer of the UES fandom addressed the chaos with the tone of a teacher correcting unruly students. "You're trying to fight us with matter and energy. We learned to weaponize the universe itself. This isn't a contest between technologies. It's a demonstration of why humans spent 5 years studying your capabilities before revealing our own." The Phantom demonstrated by briefly existing in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Enemy ships trying to target it found their weapons firing at empty space, while the human vessel attacked them from angles that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional reality. Admiral Sullivan's flagship, the UES Sovereign, showcased different capabilities by creating localized time distortions. Hegemony cruisers found themselves experiencing hours while the rest of the battle continued in seconds. Their crews aged years and minutes while their enemies moved like lightning around them. The Vortha's crystalline ships tried to adapt by harmonizing their quantum frequencies with the human technology. The result was catastrophic. Their vessels shattered into component atoms as they tried to exist in multiple dimensional states without proper dark matter containment. Within the first hour of battle, half the galactic armada was gone. Not retreating, not damaged, simply gone. The humans had demonstrated weapons that deleted enemy ships from reality, converted their mass to energy, or scattered their atoms across multiple dimensions. The collective's cubes lasted longest because their distributed consciousness could partially adapt to multidimensional warfare. But even their advanced technology failed when the humans demonstrated matter converters that could transform entire ships into fuel for the dark matter engines. Captain Sue Morgan of the UES Ghost provided the most chilling demonstration. Her ship briefly opened a portal to empty intergalactic space and simply pushed 3 enemy fleets through it. They weren't destroyed. They were relocated to a region of the universe so empty that they would drift alone until their crews died of old age. This is what happens when a species learns to manipulate the fundamental forces that hold reality together. She announced to the survivors, "We don't fight wars, we edit them. Every ship you've lost still exists somewhere in the multiverse. We just move them to places where they can't hurt anyone." Dr. Amy Clark's voice provided scientific context that made the surviving alien commanders want to surrender immediately. Human technology doesn't violate the laws of physics. We've learned to rewrite them on a local scale. Dark matter manipulation allows us to treat space-time as a malleable substance rather than a fixed framework. By the end of the battle, fewer than 1,000 ships remained from the original 10,000. The survivors were those whose commanders had been smart enough to stop fighting and start broadcasting surrender signals. Even then, they only lived because the humans chose to let them live. Admiral Zextar's flagship was one of the last to fall, not because it was more powerful than the others, but because Captain Turner wanted to make a point. The Valkyrie approached the hegemony vessel slowly, its dark hull reflecting nothing while reality bent around it like heated glass. "This is how your war ends," Turner announced as his ship demonstrated its final capability. The Dominators simply stopped existing in their dimension, while remaining visible as a ghost image. The crew was alive and unharmed, but their ship now existed in a parallel dimension where they could observe but never again participate in the real universe. The Battle of Kepler Prime lasted 3 hours and 12 minutes. When it ended, the most powerful military force in galactic history had been reduced to scattered wreckage drifting in space, while the human shadow fleet had lost exactly nothing. Admiral Sullivan's final message echoed across the galaxy through every communication system simultaneously. Earth hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council. Human space is now off-limits to all non-terrestrial vessels. Any ship approaching our colonies will be asked once to leave. We won't ask twice. The age of human dominance had begun with a demonstration that would be remembered until the stars burned out. The aftermath of the Battle of Kepler Prime was a silence that stretched across the galaxy like a funeral shroud. In the weeks that followed, surviving ship commanders tried to file reports that their own governments refused to believe. The idea that the primitive humans had destroyed the greatest armada in galactic history seemed too impossible to accept. Captain Rex Holland sat in his damaged ship, the USS Liberty, writing his final report as Earth's representative to the galactic community. Around him, the rescue operations continued as human ships pulled survivors from the wreckage that had once been the pride of 12 different civilizations. The humans were being surprisingly gentle with their former enemies. Medical ships appeared from nowhere to treat wounded aliens. Engineering vessels worked tirelessly to repair damaged life support systems. Even the crews who had tried to kill them hours earlier were receiving the best care human technology could provide. "This is Captain Roy Palmer of the UES Phantom," came the announcement over general communication channels. "All surviving vessels are under Earth protection, while rescue operations continue. Any species wishing to collect their people should send unarmed medical ships to the following coordinates. We'll transfer survivors and provide medical reports." The courtesy was almost more unsettling than the overwhelming military victory. The humans weren't gloating or making demands. They were acting like rescuers who had arrived after a natural disaster, not conquerors who had just proven their absolute dominance over galactic civilization. Admiral Zextar's voice came from the rescue ship, where human doctors were treating his radiation injuries. The proud hegemony commander who had started the war now sounded like a broken old man. "Why?" he asked Captain Palmer during the medical transfer. "Why didn't you just destroy us completely? You had the power." Palmer's response was delivered with the same calm professionalism he had shown throughout the battle. "Because we're not monsters, Admiral. Earth's military doctrine emphasizes minimum necessary force. We could have deleted your entire fleet in the first few minutes, but we wanted to give your people a chance to surrender and go home to their families." The scope of human restraint was slowly becoming clear to the survivors. Every destroyed ship had actually been transported to safe dimensions or converted energy and stored in human databases. The crews were alive and unharmed, simply removed from the battle in ways that defied conventional understanding of life and death. Dr. Amy Clark worked frantically in her temporary laboratory, documenting the technology that had been demonstrated for the benefit of galactic science. Her reports read like fantasy novels, describing weapons that could edit reality and defenses that made ships temporarily immune to the laws of physics. "The humans have been studying our military capabilities for 5 years," she explained to the emergency session of surviving galactic leaders. "Every weapon we used, every tactic we employed, every strategic doctrine we followed, they had countermeasures prepared in advance. This wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration." Commander Jake Morrison's role had changed from observer to Earth's final diplomatic representative. His message to the remnants of the Galactic Council was delivered with the weight of absolute authority behind every word. "Earth tried to work within your system for 5 years," he said, addressing the emergency assembly from his position aboard a human rescue ship. "We offered technology exchanges, requested equal representation, and attempted to contribute to galactic civilization as partners. Every proposal was rejected because you couldn't accept that a primitive species might have something valuable to contribute. The truth was devastating in its simplicity. While the galactic powers had dismissed Earth as irrelevant, human scientists had been secretly developing technology that made every other civilization look like they were still using stone tools. The Shadow Fleet represented not just military superiority, but fundamental evolution in how intelligent beings could interact with the universe itself. Jake's final diplomatic message contained a new reality that would reshape galactic civilization. Earth hereby establishes the following boundaries around all human colonies and shipping routes. Any non-human vessel entering these zones will be contacted once and asked to leave. Compliance is not optional. The boundaries he described covered nearly 30% of known space, including most of the major trade routes that connected different galactic regions. Human colonies that had once been considered remote outposts were suddenly the centers of forbidden zones that no alien ship dared approach. Captain Sue Morgan of the UES Ghost provided the enforcement demonstration that made Earth's new policy clear. Her ship appeared simultaneously above the home worlds of 6 different species, existing in multiple locations through dark matter manipulation that allowed her to be everywhere at once. This is a friendly reminder. She announced the billions of aliens across multiple star systems. Earth is always watching. Our ships exist in dimensions you can't detect, monitoring every military movement in the galaxy. We know about your weapons, your strategies, and your plans before your own commanders do. The psychological impact was exactly what Earth Command had intended. The knowledge that human ships could be anywhere, observing everything, without any possibility of detection, paralyzed military planning across the galaxy. How do you prepare for war against an enemy who can monitor your preparations from dimensions you can't even perceive? The economic consequences followed quickly. Human dark matter technology made most galactic industries obsolete overnight. Why mine asteroids for metals when you could convert empty space into any element you needed? Why build generation ships for long journeys when you could fold space-time and travel instantly between stars? Some species attempted to negotiate new relationships with humanity. The Vorth, always pragmatic, offered their mathematical knowledge in exchange for access to human medical technology. The Verdans proposed biological research partnerships. Even some hegemony worlds quietly sent diplomatic missions to human colonies, hoping to avoid the fate that had befallen their military. But most of the galaxy simply retreated in terror. Trade routes were abandoned if they passed too close to human space. Military exercises were canceled if human observers might be watching. Entire species relocated their homeworlds farther from Earth's expanding sphere of influence. Dr. Clark's final scientific report to the galactic community contained the most disturbing revelation of all. Analysis of human technology suggests they have been developing these capabilities for at least 2 decades. Every interaction Earth has had with galactic civilization has been carefully managed to hide their true advancement level. We never had a primitive species among us. We had a predator studying its prey. The realization that humanity had been deceiving them from the very beginning was almost worse than the military defeat. Every friendly conversation, every diplomatic meeting, every cultural exchange had been carefully orchestrated to maintain the illusion that humans were harmless newcomers to galactic society. Captain Palmer's final message to the survivors was delivered with the same calm professionalism that had characterized all human communication during the crisis. Earth bears no ill will toward any galactic species. We simply want to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. Respect our boundaries, and we'll have no reason for further conflict. The message was clear, but the subtext was even clearer. Humanity had demonstrated that they could destroy galactic civilization whenever they chose. The only thing protecting the other species was human mercy, and that mercy would last only as long as they remembered their place in the new galactic order. As the rescue operations concluded and the surviving alien ships limped home to spread word of their defeat, one fact became clear to every being in the galaxy. The age of human dominance had begun, and it had started with a demonstration of power so overwhelming that resistance was not just futile, it was unthinkable. The humans had won their independence not through negotiation or gradual acceptance, but by proving that they were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered. And they had done it with a gentleness that somehow made them even more terrifying than the most brutal conquerors in galactic history. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Prime, the galaxy had reorganized itself around a simple principle: don't anger the humans. Major Tony Baker sat alone in the small diplomatic station at the very edge of human territory, watching as representatives from 12 different species traveled parsecs out of their way to avoid getting too close to Earth's borders. The transformation was remarkable and disturbing. Trade routes that had connected galactic civilization for centuries were now abandoned if they passed within 50 light-years of any human colony. The Galactic Council had relocated its headquarters 3 times, each move taking them farther from Earth's expanding sphere of influence. Tony's role as Earth's sole representative to galactic affairs was largely ceremonial. Most species were too frightened to request meetings, and those brave enough to approach did so with the desperate courtesy of beings who knew they were completely at the mercy of their hosts. The economic impact of human technology had been swift and devastating. Within months of the battle, most galactic industries had collapsed as human dark matter manipulation made traditional manufacturing obsolete. Why spend years mining metals from dangerous asteroids when humans could convert empty vacuum into any element the periodic table contained? The Vorth had adapted best, offering their mathematical expertise in exchange for access to human medical technology. Their crystalline cities now displayed equations that described dark matter physics, marking their transformation from proud warriors to eager students of human science. The hegemony had fared worse. Admiral Zextar's military doctrine had emphasized overwhelming firepower and territorial expansion. With both strategies proven worthless against human technology, their entire civilization had to rebuild itself from the ground up. Former military worlds became farming colonies, and their proud fleet officers retrained as civilian administrators. The Nexari had simply vanished. Their entire species had retreated to the galactic rim, hoping that distance would protect them from human attention. Long-range sensors occasionally detected their ships, but they fled immediately whenever human vessels appeared in the same star system. Tony reviewed the daily intelligence reports from Earth Command with a mixture of professional interest and personal horror. Human ships were everywhere, existing in dimensions that allowed them to observe galactic civilization without being detected. Every military movement, every diplomatic meeting, every scientific breakthrough was monitored and recorded by invisible watchers. The psychological effect was exactly what Earth had intended. How do you plan a war against an enemy who knows your strategies before you do? How do you maintain military secrets when human observers might be listening from parallel dimensions? Captain Sue Morgan had made the point dramatically 3 months earlier. A group of hegemony militants had attempted to organize a resistance movement, gathering secretly on a remote world to plan attacks against human colonies. Their meeting was interrupted when Captain Morgan's ship, the UES Ghost, decloaked directly above their capital city. "Gentlemen," she had announced to the startled conspirators, "Earth appreciates your passion, but we really must insist that you find more constructive hobbies. Perhaps farming? We understand your soil conditions are excellent for growing food crops." The resistance movement disbanded immediately. The knowledge that human ships could appear anywhere at any time without warning made organized opposition impossible. Even thinking rebellious thoughts felt dangerous when humanity's technology could potentially read minds from other dimensions. The most successful adaptation had come from unexpected sources. The plant-like verdants had embraced their new role as biological researchers, working with human scientists to develop new life forms that could thrive in the modified space-time fields around human colonies. Their work was producing remarkable results. Plants that could photosynthesize dark matter, and animals that existed partially in multiple dimensions. Dr. Amy Clark had become something of a celebrity among galactic scientists, the one human willing to explain the principles behind Earth's impossible technology. Her lectures were attended by beings from across the galaxy, all desperate to understand how their civilization had become obsolete overnight. 1 year after the Battle of Kepler Prime, the story had become legend. Parents across the galaxy told their children bedtime stories about the day the humans revealed their true nature. Military academies studied the engagement not as a battle, but as a demonstration of what happened when one species achieved absolute technological superiority over all others. Dr. Amy Clark sat in her office at the Galactic Research Institute, reviewing the psychological impact reports that arrived daily from across known space. Her role had evolved from Earth's scientific ambassador to something resembling a therapist for an entire galaxy suffering from collective trauma. The data was sobering. Entire species had developed what xenopsychologists were calling human anxiety disorder, a condition where civilizations became paralyzed by the fear that they might accidentally anger Earth. Suicide rates had increased across multiple worlds as beings struggled to find purpose in a universe where their technology, their culture, and their very existence seemed suddenly meaningless. The galaxy is experiencing what we might call species-wide depression. Dr. Clark explained to the small gathering of alien researchers who still dared to study the human impact. When you discover that everything you thought you knew about physics, warfare, and civilization is wrong, it creates an existential crisis that affects entire populations. The Vorth had adapted by treating humanity as divine beings worthy of worship rather than equals worthy of respect. Their crystal cities now displayed mathematical prayers written in equations that described dark matter physics. Children learned to sing hymns about the day the humans ascended beyond normal space-time, and their greatest artists created sculptures that could only be viewed properly from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The hegemony had taken a different approach, transforming their entire culture from militaristic expansion to peaceful service. Former admirals now managed agricultural colonies that grew food specifically designed to appeal to human tastes. Their greatest warriors had become gardeners and philosophers, finding meaning in creating beauty rather than destruction. Commodore Rex Holland, promoted after his service during the First Contact mission, commanded the Joint Alien Observation Post that monitored human territory from what was considered a safe distance, approximately 200 light-years from the nearest Earth colony. His daily reports chronicled impossible achievements that casual observers mistook for magic. Human construction vessels reshaped the Vega system overnight, he reported to the Galactic Monitoring Council. 3 gas giants were converted to solid worlds through matter manipulation techniques we cannot comprehend. The entire process took less than 6 hours and appeared to violate 7 fundamental laws of physics. The reports continued with similar observations. Human ships that existed in 12 dimensions simultaneously. Mining operations that extracted energy directly from the quantum vacuum. Cities that floated in space without gravity generators. Their inhabitants walking on surfaces that bent reality rather than relying on artificial force fields. The most disturbing reports involved human colonists who seemed to have evolved beyond normal biology. Children born in the dark matter fields around Earth's new settlements displayed abilities that defied explanation. They could see into parallel dimensions, communicate across interstellar distances without technology, and manipulate matter at the molecular level through conscious thought alone. Captain Sue Morgan had become the face of human patrol operations. Her ship, the UES Ghost, appearing throughout the galaxy whenever problems arose that local species couldn't handle. Her interventions were always surgical and effective, solving conflicts that had lasted for centuries with casual demonstrations of overwhelming capability. 3 months earlier, she had ended a war between the Nexri and a species of silicon-based beings by temporarily moving both of their home systems to parallel dimensions where they could fight without affecting anyone else. When they grew tired of the conflict, she moved them back with a simple message: play nice, or I'll separate you permanently. The incident had become required study material at military academies throughout the galaxy, not because of the strategic implications, but because it demonstrated how completely human thinking had transcended conventional approaches to problem solving. When you could manipulate the fundamental structure of reality, traditional diplomacy became unnecessary. Admiral Kate Sullivan, aboard her flagship U.S. Sovereign, continued her patrols of the Outer Rim, where human space bordered the unexplored regions beyond the galactic edge. Her ships were no longer the most advanced vessels in Earth's fleet. They had been surpassed by technologies that existed purely as organized energy patterns without physical form. The newer human vessels were incomprehensible to galactic observers. Ships that appeared as geometric equations, solving themselves in real time. Weapons platforms that existed as pure mathematics until activated, then materialized as physical objects capable of rewriting the laws of physics in localized regions of space. Dr. Clark's research had revealed the most unsettling truth of all. The humans weren't trying to be incomprehensible. Earth's technology had simply evolved beyond the point where three-dimensional thinking could fully grasp its implications. Humanity was accidentally becoming something that transcended normal understanding of what intelligent life could accomplish. The economic transformation was complete. Traditional manufacturing had ceased to exist in most regions of space. Why build ships from metal when you could grow them from crystallized space-time? Why transport goods between stars when you could simply restructure matter at the destination to create whatever was needed? Most galactic currencies had become worthless overnight. The only valuable commodity was human attention. The possibility that Earth might notice your species and decide to help with some impossible problem. Entire civilizations competed to create art, music, and literature that might interest human observers, hoping to earn the protection that came with being considered interesting by Earth's cultural analysts. The few species that maintained any semblance of independence did so by making themselves useful in ways that complemented human capabilities. The Verdans had become master gardeners, creating biological art forms that thrive in the modified physics around human colonies. The collective served as librarians, cataloging and organizing the cultural achievements of civilizations that could no longer compete with human technology. Tony Baker's role as Earth's diplomatic representative had evolved into something resembling a guidance counselor for traumatized civilizations. His office received thousands of requests each day from species, seeking advice on how to find meaning in a universe where humanity could solve any problem simply by thinking about it creatively. The requests ranged from practical to philosophical. How should we educate our children when all knowledge seems primitive compared to human understanding? Asked the Vor Council. What is the purpose of scientific research when humans have already discovered everything? One of the former hegemony academies. Tony's responses were always patient and encouraging, though privately he struggled with the same questions. Earth had achieved everything it wanted: independence, security, and the respect of the galactic community. But the victory had been so complete that it left humanity isolated by their own success. The story reached its ultimate expression in the oral traditions that were already spreading across the galaxy. Children learned songs about the day the humans stopped pretending to be normal. Artists created works depicting the moment when Earth's ships emerged from the darkness between stars. Philosophers wrote treatises about the psychological impact of discovering that your species was not as advanced as you believed. The legend that was forming around humanity served a psychological function for the traumatized galaxy. By turning the Battle of Kepler Prime into mythology, other species could process their defeat as part of a cosmic plan rather than evidence of their own inadequacy. In the deepest regions of space, beyond the reach of conventional sensors, human exploration fleets continued their work of mapping the universe. They discovered galaxies where the laws of physics operated differently, dimensions where time flowed backward, and regions of space where consciousness itself had evolved into forms of life that existed purely as organized thought. These discoveries were kept secret from the galactic community, which was still struggling to accept humanity's relatively simple demonstrations of dark matter manipulation. Earth's xenopsychologists had determined that revealing the full scope of human exploration would likely cause complete civilizational collapse among species that were already struggling with their changed circumstances. The final irony was that humanity had originally sought nothing more than acceptance as equals in galactic civilization. They had been willing to share their technology, contribute to galactic culture, and participate as junior partners in the community of intelligent species. Instead, by demonstrating their true capabilities, they had become something that other species could only worship or fear. The galaxy had learned to respect the darkness between stars, because that's where humanity had built their empire, not from conquest or colonization, but from the simple demonstration that they were so far beyond their neighbors that meaningful competition was impossible. As young alien beings fell asleep to stories about the humans who bent reality to their will, one truth had become universal across known space. When Earth's dark matter warships arrived, the galaxy had indeed frozen in terror, and that terror had transformed into a reverence that would last until the stars themselves burned out.